Welcome back. We haven't done a Machiavelli video in a while, so I figured, we will, continue to work on the third book of Machiavelli's The Art of War from 1520. When we left off, Fabrizio was standing here explaining how he sets up his military in battles, and Luigi was questioning. So we're going to start with Luigi's part and continue on and do this for about 20 minutes. Let's see what y'all think. All right, so Luigi, you have won this engagement with so much fury that I am astonished. In fact, so stupefied, I do not believe I can well explain if there is any doubt left in my mind. Yet, trusting in your prudence, I will take courage to say that I intend. Tell me first, why did you not let your artillery fire more than one time, and why did you have them quickly retire within the army, nor afterwards make any mention of it? It seems to me that you also pointed the enemy artillery high and arranged it so that it would be so that it should be much benefit to you. Yet if it should occur, and I believe it happens often, that the lines are pierced, what remedy do you provide? Since I have commenced on artillery, I want to bring up all these questions so as to not have to discuss it anymore. I have heard many disparage the arms and organizations of the ancient armies, arguing that today they could do little, or rather how useless they would be against the fury of the artillery. For these are superior to their arms and break the rank. So that it appears to them to be madness to create an arrangement that cannot be held, as to endure hardship in carrying a weapon that cannot defend you. Fabrizio, this question of yours has need because it has so many times of a long answer. It is true that I did not have the artillery fire more than one time because of it. One remains in doubt. Reason is that it's more important to me to guard against being shot than shooting the enemy. You must understand that if you do not want the artillery to injure you, it is necessary to stay where it cannot reach you, or to put yourself behind a wall or embankment. Nothing else will stop, but it is necessary for them to be very strong. These captains who must make arrangement cannot remain behind walls or embankment, nor can they remain where it may reach them. They must therefore, since they do not have a way of protecting themselves, find one by which they are injured less, nor can they do anything other than to undertake it quickly. The way of doing this is to go find it quickly and directly, not slowly or in mass, for speed does not allow them to shoot again, and because the men are scattered, they can injure only a few of them. A band of organized men cannot do this, because if they march in a straight line, they become disorganized, and if they scatter, they do not have the enemy the hard work to rout, for they have routed themselves. And therefore, I would organize the army so that it should be able to do both. For having placed 1,000 Veliti in its wings, I would arrange that after our artillery had fired, they should issue forth together, with the light cavalry to seize the enemy artillery. And therefore I did not have my artillery fire again, so as not to give the enemy time for you cannot give me time and take it from others. And for that reason I did not have it fired a second time. Was not to allow it to be fired first, because to render the enemy artillery useless, there is no other remedy than to assault it, which if the enemy abandons it, seize it. If they want to defend it, it is necessary they leave it behind, so that in the hands of the enemy or of friends it cannot be fired. I believe that even with that example, this discussion should be enough for you, yet being able to give you some of the ancient, I will do so. Ventidius, coming to battle with the Parthians, virtue of whom the latter, the great part consisted of their bows and darts. He allowed them to come almost under his encampment before he led the army out, which he only did in order to be able to seize them quickly, and not give them time to fire. Caesar in Gaul tells that coming to battle with the enemy, he was assaulted by them with such fury that his men did not have time to draw their darts. According to Roman customs, it is seen therefore that being in the field, if you do not want something fired from a distance to injure you, there is no other remedy than to be able to seize it as quickly as possible. Another reason also caused me to do without firing the artillery, at which you may perhaps laugh, yet I do not judge it as disparage. There is nothing that causes greater confusion in an army than to obstruct its vision, whence stalwart armies have been routed for having their vision obstructed either by dust or by the sun. There is also nothing that impedes vision than the smoke which the artillery makes when fired. I would think, therefore, it would be more prudent to let the enemy blind himself than for you to blindly find him. I would therefore not fire, as this is not approved because the reputation of artillery has. I would put it in the wings of the army so that firing it, its smoke not blind the front of what is most important of our forces, and that obstructing the vision of the enemy is something useful can be adduced from the example of Epaminondas, who behind the enemy army which was coming to engage, and had his light cavalry run in front of the enemy, so that they raised the dust high, which obstructed their vision and gave him the victory of the engagement. As to appearing to you, I aimed the shots of the artillery in my own manner, making it pass over the heads of the infantry. I reply that there are more times, and without comparison, that the heavy artillery does not penetrate the infantry than it does because the infantry lies slowly. And when the artillery is so difficult to fire that little that you raise them causes them to pass over the heads of the infantry. And if you lower them, they damage the ground. The shot does not reach them. The infantry also, the unevenness of the ground saves them from every little mound or height which exists between the infantry and the artillery impedes it. As the cavalry, and especially men at arms, because they are taller and can be more easily be hit, they can be kept in the rear tail of the army until the time the artillery is fired. It is true that often they injure the smaller artillery and the gunners more than the latter. Cavalry, to which the best remedy is to come quickly to grips, hand to hand, and if the first assault some are killed, some always do die. A good captain and a good army do not have fear and injury that is confined, but in a general one, and they imitate the Swiss, who had never shunned an engagement, even if terrified by the artillery, but rather they punish with capital penalty, who because of fear, it either breaks ranks or by the person give the sign of fear. I made them, once it had been fired, to retire into the army because it left the passage free to the companies. No other mention of it was made as something useless once the battle was started. All right, you have also said in regard to the fury of the argument that many judge the arms and systems of the ancients to be useless, and it appears from your talk that the moderns have found arms and systems which are useful against artillery. If you know this, I would be pleased for you to show it to me. For up to now, I do not know of any that have been observed, nor do I believe any can be found. But I would like to learn from those men for what reasons the soldiers on foot on our times wear the breastplate or the corset of iron, and those on horseback go completely covered with armor, since condemning the ancient armor was useless with respect to the artillery. They also sought to shun these. I would also like to learn the reason the Swiss, in imitation of the ancient system, for a close-pressed company of 6,000 or 8,000 infantry, for what reason all the others have imitated them, bringing all the same dangers to the system, because the artillery, as the others brought, which had been imitated from antiquity, I believe that they would not know what to answer. If you ask the soldiers who should have some experience, they would answer first that they go armed, because if their armor does not protect them from the artillery, it does every other injury inflicted by the enemy, and would also answer that they go closely together as a Swiss in order to be able to better attack the infantry, resist the cavalry, and give the enemy more difficulty in routing them. So that is observed, the soldiers had their fear many other things beside the artilleries, from which they defend themselves with armor and organization, from which it follows that as much as an army is better armed, as much as its ranks are more serrated, more powerful, so much as it is secure, so that whoever is in the opinions you mentioned must either be little prudence or has thought very little on the matter. For if we see the least part of the ancient way of arming in use today, which is in the pike, and the least part of those systems, which are the battalions of the switch, which do us much good and lend so much power to our armies, why shouldn't we believe that other arms and other systems that they left us are also useful? Moreover, if we do not have any regard for the military when we place ourselves close together, like the Swiss, what other system than that make us afraid? And as much as there is no other arrangement that can make us afraid of that than that of being pressed together, in addition to this, if the enemy artillery does not frighten me when I lay siege to a town where he may injure me with great safety to himself, and where I am unable to capture it as it is defended from the walls, but can stop him only with time with my artillery, so that he is able to redouble his shots as he wishes, why do I have to be afraid of him in the field where I am able to seize him quickly? So that I conclude this, that the artillery, according to my opinion, does not impede anyone who is able to use the methods of the ancients. and demonstrate ancient virtue. If I had not talked another time with you concerning this instrument, I would extend myself further, but I want to return to what I have now said. Luigi, we are able to have a very good understanding since you have such discoursed about artillery, and in some, it seems to me that you have shown the best remedy is that one against it when he is in the field and having an army and an encounter is to capture it quickly, upon which a doubt rises in me. For it seems to me that the enemy can so locate it on the side of his army from which he can injure you, and would be so protected by the other side that it cannot be captured. You have, if you will remember, in your army's order for battle, created intervals of the 4-arm lengths between one company. Placed 20 of the extraordinary pikemen of the company there. If the enemy should organize his army similarly to yours, and place his artillery well within those intervals, I believe that from here he will be able to injure you with the greatest safety himself, for it would not be possible to enter among the enemy forces to capture it. Fabrizio, you doubt very prudently, and I would endeavor either to resolve the doubt or to give you a remedy. I have told you that these companies, either when going out or when fighting, are continually in motion, by nature always end up close together, so that if you make the intervals small in which you place the artillery in a short time, it would be so closed up that the artillery can no longer perform its function. If you make them large, to avoid this danger, you incur a greater, so that because of those intervals, you not only give the enemy the opportunity to capture your artillery, but to rout you. But you have to know that it is impossible to keep the artillery between the ranks, especially those that are mounted on carriage, for the artillery travel in one direction and are fired in the other, so that they are desired to be fired while traveling. It is necessary before they are fired they be turned, and when they are being turned, they need so much space that 50 carriages of artillery would disrupt every army. It is necessary, therefore, to keep them outside the ranks where they can be operated in the manner which we showed you in a short time ago. Let us suppose that they can be kept. A middle way can be found, a kind in which, when closed together, they should not impede the artillery, yet not be so open as to provide a path for the enemy. I say that it is easily remedied at the time of the encounter by creating intervals in your army which give a free path for its shot. Just its fury will be useless, which can be easily done, because the enemy, if it wants its artillery to be safe, must place in the end portions of the interval so that its shot, they should not harm its own men, pass in a straight line, always in the same line. Therefore, by giving them room, you can be easily avoided. Because this is a general rule that you must give way to those things that cannot be resisted. The ancients did to the elephants and chariots with sickles. I believe, rather, I am more than certain that it must appear to you that I have prepared and won an argument, an engagement in my own manner. Nonetheless, I will repeat this, that if I've set up now is now enough, that it would be impossible for an army thus organized and not armed not to overcome at the first encounter. Every other army organized as modern armies are organized, which often, unless they have shields, swordsmen, do not form a front, and are an unarmed kind which cannot defend themselves from a nearby enemy, and so organized that if they place their companies on the flanks next to each other, not having a way of receiving one another, they cause it to be confused and apt to be easily disturbed. And although they give their armies 3 names and divide them into 3 ranks, the vanguard, the company, the main body, and the rear guard, nonetheless, they do not serve for anything else other than to distinguish them in marching and in their quarters. But in an engagement, they are all pledged to the first attack. Luigi, I have also noted that making your engagement, cavalry was repulsed by the enemy cavalry, and that it retired among the extraordinary pikemen. Whence it happened with their aid, they withstood and repulsed the enemy in the rear. I believe the pikemen can withstand the cavalry, as you said, but not a large and strong battalion, as the Swiss do, which in your army. I have 5 ranks of pikemen at the head, 7 on the flank, so that I do not know how they are able to withstand them. Fabrizio, although I have told you that the 6 ranks were employed in the phalanxes of the Macedonia, nonetheless, you have to know that a Swiss battalion, if it were composed of 10,000 ranks, did not employ before, or at most 5, because the pikes are 9 arm lengths long, and an arm length and a half is occupied by the hand. Whence only 7.5 arm lengths of the pike is to remain in the first rank. The second rank, in addition to what the hand occupies, uses up an arm's length space that exists between one rank and the next, so that not even 6 arms lengths of pike remain for use. For the same reason, these remain 4 4 and 1/2 arm length to the third rank, 3 to the fourth, and 1.5 to the fifth. The other ranks are useless to inflict injury, but they serve to replace the first ranks, as we have said, and serve as the reinforcement to the first 5 ranks. If therefore 5 of their ranks can control cavalry, why cannot 5 of ours control them? To whom 5 ranks behind them are not always lacking to sustain them, and give the same support even when they do not have the pikes as the others do. And that the ranks of extraordinary pikemen which are placed among the flanks seem thin to you, they can be formed into a square and placed in the flank by the 2 companies which I place in the last ranks of the army, from which place they would fall together and be able easily to help in the van in the rear of the army. Lend aid to the cavalry accordingly as their need may require. Luigi, why do you always use this form of organization when you would want to engage in battle? Fabrizio, not in every case, where you have to vary the formation of the army according to the fitness of the sight, kind of numbers of the enemy, which will be shown before discussion. Furnished with an example, this formation that is given here, not so much because it is stronger than the others, but the truth is very strong, as much as from the abstain the rule system. You know how to reorganize the manner of organization for the others? For every science has its generation upon which in good part it is based. One thing only I would remind you, that you never organize an army so that whoever fights in the van cannot be helped by those who are situated behind. Because wherever makes the error renders unless the great part of the army, and if any virtue is implemented, he cannot win. Luigi, and on this part some doubt has arisen. I have seen the disposition of the companies you form. The front, 5 on each side in the center, and 3 in the rear. 2, I would believe that it should be better to arrange them opposite, because I think that an army can be routed with more difficulty. For whoever should attack, the more he should penetrate into it. So much harder would he find it, but the arrangement has made you appears to be results that the more one enters into it, the more he finds it weak. Fabrizio, you remember that the Triarii, who were the third rank of the Roman legions, were not assigned to more than 600 men. You would have less doubt. And you leave that they were placed in the last ranks, because you would see that I, motivated by his examples, I placed 2 companies in the last rank, comprised 900 infantry, so that I come to the air with your Roman people and having taken away too many of them to you. And although this example should suffice, I want to tell you the reasons, which is this. The first front line of the army is made solid and dense because it has to withstand the enemy and does not have to receive any friends into it. And because of this, it must abound in men. Few men would make it weak, both from their sparseness and their number. Second line, because it has to relieve friends from the first who have witnessed the enemy, must have long intervals, therefore must have smaller number than the first. Or if it should be of greater or equal number, it would result in not having any intervals, which would cause disorder. Or if in some should be left, it should extend beyond the ends of the front, to make the formation of the army incomplete. Perfect. And what you say is not true. But the more the enemy enters into the battalions, the weaker he will find them. For the enemy can never fight the second line. The first one is not joined up with it, so they will come to find the center of the battalion stronger and not weaker, having to fight with the first and second lines together. The same thing happens if the enemy should reach the third line. Here, he will not only have to fight 2 fresh companies, but with the entire battalion. And as this is his last part, has to receive more men. Its spaces must be larger, and receive them less in number. Luigi, and I like what you have said, but also answer me this. If the 5 companies retire among the second 3, and afterwards the 8 among the third 2, does it not seem possible that the 8 come together and the 10 together and able to crowd together, whether they are 8 or 10 into the same space with the 5 occupied? Fabrizio, first thing I answer is that it is not the same space, for the 5 have 4 spaces between them, which they occupy when retiring with the battalion in the next. That which exists between 3 or 2, there remains a space that which exists between the companies and the extraordinary pikemen, which spaces are all made large. There is adding to the whatever other space companies have when they are in lines without being changed. For when they are changed, the ranks are either compressed or enlarged. They become enlarged when they are too much afraid that they put themselves in flight. They become compressed when they become so afraid they seek to save themselves, not by flight, but by dense defense, so that in this case they would compress themselves not spread out. There is added to this, it's 5 ranks of pikemen who are in front. Once they have started the battle, have to retire among the companies in the rear, tail of the army, to make place for the shield bearers, swordsmen, who are able to fight. And when they go into the tail of the army, they can serve. Whoever captain should judge should employ them well. Whereas the fronts, once the fight becomes mixed, it will be completely useless, and therefore the arranged spaces come to be very capacious for the remaining forces. But even if these spaces should not suffice, the flanks on the sides consist of men and not walls, who, when they give way, spread out and are able to create a space of such capacity which should be sufficient to feed Luigi. The ranks of the extraordinary pikemen which you place on the flank of the army when the first company retires into the second, do you want them to remain firm and become as 2 wings of the army? Do you wish them to retire with the company? Which, if they have to do this, I do not see how they can, as they do not have companies behind them with wide intervals which should receive them. Fabrizio, if the enemy does not fight them when he faces the companies retire, they are able to remain in their ranks and inflict injury on the enemy on the flank, since the first companies have retired. But they should also fight them, as seems reasonable, being so powerful as to be able to force the others to retire. They should also cause them to retire. Listen, them. Yeah, anyway, seems reasonable, being so powerful as they're able to force others to retire. They should cause them also to retire, which they are very well able to do, even though they have no one behind who should receive them. For from the middle forward, they are able to double the right, one file entering in the other, in the manner in which discussed, in which we talk to the arranger for doubling themselves. It is true that when doubling, they should want to retire behind. Other means must be found, that which I have shown you. Since I told you that the second rank had to enter among the first, the fourth among the third, and on so on, little by little. In this case, it would not be begun from the front, but from the rear. So in doubling the ranks, they should come to retire to the rear, not turn in from the front. But to reply to all of that which you have asked concerning the engagement is shown by me. It should be repeated that I again say that I have so organized this army, and will again explaining this engagement to you. 2 reasons: 1, to show you how the army is organized; other, to show you how it is trained. Systems, I believe you all most knowledgeable as in the army. I tell you that it may often be put together in this form, for the heads are taught to keep the companies in this order, and because it is the duty of each individual soldier to keep well the arrangement of each company, and it is his duty of each head to keep well those in each part of the army, and how well to obey the commands of the general captain. They must know, therefore, how to join one company with another, how to take their places instantly. And therefore the banner of each company must have its number displayed openly, so that they be commanded and the captain of the soldiers be more readily to recognize that number. The battalions also have their number on their principal. Listen, banner. One must know, therefore, what the number of the battalion placed to the left of the right wing, the number of those placed in the front and on the center, and so on for the others. I would want that also these numbers reflect grades of positions in the army. For instance, the first grade is the head of, the second is the head of 5th ordinary veliti, the third the centurion, the fourth the head of the first company, the fifth at the head of the second company, the sixth of the third, and so on up to the 10th company, which should be in the second place next to the general captain of the battalion. Nor should anyone arrive to that leadership unless he had his first risen to all these grades. And as in addition to these heads, these are the 3 constables in command of the extraordinary pikemen, 2 of the extraordinary veliti. I would want them to be of the grade of constable of the first company. Nor would I care if they were men of each equal grade, as long as each of them should be promoted to the second company. Each one of these captains, therefore, knowing that where his company should be located of necessity, it will follow at the sound of the trumpet, once the captain's flag is raised, to all of the army will be in its proper places. This is the first exercise in which an army ought to become accustomed, that is, to assemble itself quickly. To do this, you must frequently each day arrange them and disarrange them. That's beautiful. Yeah. But anyway, in 25 minutes, I'm saying, so we're going to end this right here. Thank you guys very much. If you enjoy this content, please join, become a patron. Let me hit the links in the description. Support this channel. Check out P Public. It is what it is. Pnoid News. You know what it's like. Like, share,